Today's guest is a drummer, a guitarist, a mixer. He does a bunch of stuff, appears on URM Academy, nailed a mix, has released a new album this year with Humanity's Last Breath, and recently released a new single with Viljarta. Today's guest is BUSTER Odeholm. Welcome to Beyond the Riff. I just want to thank you so much for doing this. I'm very excited to talk to you actually, because I've been watching a lot of your stuff from URM Academy and stuff like that. How are you? How have you been?
I'm good, man. Nothing really good or bad, as far as how I feel. So I'm fine. How are you?
I'm chilling. With the whole pandemic, I had a lot of time to work on music, so that's always fun. Before we get into all the questions, Humanity's Last Breath, the new album this year. Sick album.
Yeah.
Congrats on that.
You.
Really, really excited. Really liked it.
Cool.
And then Viljarta with the new track a few weeks ago.
Right.
Does that mean we're getting a new Viljarta album?
Yeah, man. For sure.
Is there a release
I don't
date?
know. No, I can't release any information that we haven't released, but I think we wrote 2021 in that video in the description quite cryptically. So, I mean, that's what I can give you, basically.
Okay, so this year, new Viljarta album. That's confirmed. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah, and I'll get shit for confirming it if it was not confirmed, but I'll have to say yes.
Okay. So, you joined Viljarta. Viljarta is not your own project. You joined Viljarta later on. Humanity's Last Breath is your project, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I saw that you don't like to write a lot for Viljarta because, as you said in your own words, it's like you don't want it to be you trying to sound like Viljarta. So when you write stuff, how does that process look like? Where do you start? Where does it begin?
For HLB, it's it has been a couple different ways of doing it. The self-titled album and the Tester EP was written on Guitar Pro, just like notation basically. And the reason for that was that I wanted to basically sound like Viljarta, and I didn't have the know-how of how they did their stuff, as far as sitting down and playing those types of riffs. I didn't have the know-how how they went about it. So the way I went about it was kind of making riffs in notation and kind of copy-pasting it in a way where the riff would restart on an odd meter or something odd, I guess. And I would just listen and kind of correct stuff I didn't like. And it was a good way of getting that randomness.
Yeah.
I was after. But then I got tired of doing that because it was getting your inspiration out was pretty hard with notation because it takes a bit longer than just sitting down playing or stuff like that. So for me, I just for the Abyssal record for HLB, that was more me sitting down playing riffs. But that also led to that album being more I don't know, not primitive, but less technical maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
More as if a guy is actually playing the riffs.
Yeah.
So that was kind of why that sounded that way. But this new one, I did the same thing as far as sitting down and actually playing the stuff, but I made an effort of introducing that randomness that I like, but also being able to sit down and kind of play, because I've gotten used to that for the Abyssal record, so I want to keep doing that. And also when I joined Viljarta, I kind of got a hang of how they did stuff, so I kind of learned from them, and bunch of different ways of writing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's always good. It's nice to have a bunch of different approaches. You always get different results with that.
Sure.
Now, one thing that a lot of people, I told some people that I was going to talk to you, and one question that always came up, I watched some interviews of you, so I already know the answer. For the people that haven't seen those interviews yet, what is up with your guitar playing and it being upside down?
Well,
when Satan gave birth to me, he wanted me to follow the left-handed path. That's why.
no, I'm just. When I was a kid, I was left-handed, and the only guitar we had at home was a right-handed steel string acoustic. And instead of me playing right-handed like that, I flipped it around so that I can play the way that felt right to me. But like, I mean, when I was a kid, like a kid, it kind of started with me just putting it in my lap, basically, like laying down. So I was tinkering with it that way, and then I got like big enough physically to be able to sit with it, and I turned it up. So, and yeah, I mean, since I was so hardcore into drums early, I think my dad was kind of like, yeah, he's tinkering with the guitar, so I'm not gonna say anything about that. But then the guitar got also serious as far as my playing, but it was already too late when I mean, when I remember my dad like, we should go in like spend like an hour a day to try to get you to learn the right way, and he like restringed the guitar like properly, but yeah, that didn't last at all. It was already too late. So yeah, I got stuck playing that way, and then when I wanted to like tune down and I wanted to have a longer scale, I did not want like 7 or 8 strings actually. I had to order like custom guitars, so that was like the only option for me. So that's, I mean, the thing about that is like everyone is, I mean, they were like, oh, that's so cool, it's so cool, blah blah blah. For me, it was literally, I'm ashamed of this way of playing, and like as far as turning up to gigs and like packing up the gear and like sound checking, I always like felt ashamed of that. That's the story about that.
Okay, I don't feel like it's something that, I mean, you should be ashamed of. Everyone plays their own way, and you just happen to be in a position where you had no other way out, but you were still willing to play the guitar no matter what. So I think that's a pretty cool story relating to that. Which
like all your idols, it's like all your idols are playing like right-handed, and it looks sick and la la la. And when you look at yourself with the guitar, you look like I don't know. This looks wrong. And I mean, I got used to it, of course, and now I'm a bit more proud of it, I guess. But like I remember back in the day, like this is gonna be hard, like walking up on stage playing like that. But yeah, it worked out.
I mean, you've somewhat turned into an idol for a lot of people now, so who knows? Maybe a lot of left-handed players.
I need to say, you should not play like me. Don't play like me. Like, if you have a choice, play regularly, for God's sakes. Like, it's not there's nothing about it that's better. Like, I promise.
Well, going into music, I've learned from doing a bit of research that your dad played the drums, and he actually brought a drum kit home, which was placed in your room. Do you think that is where it started all for you? Like you saw the drum kit and were like, I want to do music, or have you?
No, that was after I started playing. The reason he brought them home was so that I could play not on chairs, because I was playing on chairs like for years, and I got to play on like real drum kits when I went to like my dad's rehearsal room, or when I went to like what's called like school for drumming, like basic learning how to drum. But that guy or all like drum teachers back in the day didn't want to let me play what I want to play. Like, I wanted to play like metal and stuff like that, and they wanted me to play paradiddles, which was not my thing at all. But so he had like drums since he was playing, but he just had them stored away, and he brought them home so I could play. So that was a huge deal, of course. I learned way faster that way.
Yeah. So you say that you wanted to play metal and they didn't allow you to do that in school, which is still to this day is still an issue. And both Viljarda and HLB definitely fall under modern metal. Have you always played metal? Is that what you started out with? Or did you mess around with other genres before you actually got into metal?
I started with Kiss, like hardcore was into Kiss. When I was a kid, like small, maybe I was like 6 or something. I think there was like a program on the TV that let kids kind of dress up like their idols and sing and perform to like an audience and stuff like that. And someone did Love It Loud by Kiss, like da, da. And like that was the first time I was like hearing any type of heavy music, and that was like instantly for me. I was hooked, and I bought like for all my money I had each month, I spent on a new Kiss record.
Okay.
So I was obsessed, and so that was how I started playing like instruments. I started playing Kiss on drums. And my dad is an audio engineer as well, who works with sound. And he had a janitor at the place where he worked that is the guitarist in the band Dark Gain, which is a Swedish thrash death metal type band.
Okay.
Really technical, and really like for like me being introduced to metal through them couldn't be like better. Like the next step would be like if I heard the first metal band I heard was Meshuggah, that would be like the next step.
Yeah.
So they're like serious musicians, seriously complicated stuff, super evil stuff as well. So he gave my dad one of their records, Insanity it's called, and I listened to that a lot, and that kind of made a huge impact on me. Sure. So yeah, that was how I started on metal for sure, and that was super early as well. I remember going with the drummer of Dark Gain is called Peter Wildor. He's one of the guys who auditioned for Dream Theater, if you saw those videos.
Oh yeah.
The Swedish guy, that's him.
Oh, okay.
He has been like I don't know, he moved in like next to where I lived, so he was my neighbor, and he like gave me broken cymbals to play, he gave me records, DVDs to borrow. I got to see when Dark Gain rehearsed and when they recorded, so like they kind of took me in a lot and influenced me a lot. Sure, like he's the reason why I have like a bell and a ride and doing like the bell fills that I do. That's straight from Peter. So if you haven't heard Dark Gain, it's like Dark and Ain, so A-N-E, so it's one word, Dark Gain. Check those guys out, they're sick. And
definitely will.
They really took me, like they took me to see Meshuggah 2004. So
nice.
I was like 12. Hardcore.
That's dope.
Yeah.
And now you moved into this all new modern sound. I think Djent/Thal, like Thal being the subgenre from Djent, which is also a subgenre, which is, I think Viljarda and Humanity's Last Breath definitely made it more popular, made it more accessible.
I mean Viljarda coined the term, so they're the creators. They're the creators of Thal for sure.
When you think about it, going back to your early days of music, you saw Meshuggah live in 2004. Looking at what you're doing right now, Is it weird to you to think about how the music has changed in comparison to, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, what was considered heavy, looking at stuff like Viljarta, which is a whole new term of heavy? It's evolved a lot. Is it weird for you to look at that in that timeline?
It's weird. I mean, I still think the early Meshuggah is just as heavy as whatever we do now. I mean, and that was so long ago as well. It's just like the production might not be the same level, but as far as the riffage and like tuning low and stuff like that, I mean, a band like Korn, like Here to Stay by Korn, it's so long ago, but it's super, super, super heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm not really like maybe their song don't emphasize the heavy all the time, like maybe our songs do, but I think there's quite old songs that are super heavy as well. So it's more like what's trendy. I feel like it might be more trendy to be super heavy now. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I still listen to those old songs and think like, yeah, they're super heavy. So you have to find like the old good stuff, you know.
Yeah. I think production definitely makes a big difference. As you say, the production is not the same like it used to be. We've come a very long way, both in hardwired and digital production. Especially anyone can produce right now from their bedroom. You can just download everything you need and start doing basic production. So I know for a fact you do the production for Humanity's Last Breath. Yeah. If someone asks you, this is something I wonder because you do so much all the time. You have Viljarta, Humanity's Last Breath, other musical projects, your Impact Studios, you appear on URM Academy, Nail the Mix. If someone asks you what your job is, how do you respond to that? Because you're doing so much at the same time. Do you consider yourself a musician, a producer? Where do you...
I would say like a mixer. Like as far as what my passion is always... it has been mixing for a long time. Writing music, I can do that for sure, but that's kind of just something I feel I have to do because I have to get my ideas out when I really feel inspired. But mixing is really something I work at to be the best because I want to be the best. And I am really serious about that stuff. I don't sit down every day and write music and kind of try to be the best at writing music. That's not my approach there. But that is my approach with mixing. If I don't have anything to mix, I mix like Nail the Mix files or whatever. Yeah. Because I always want to be mixing all the time and get better, you know.
Yeah, I've seen you do some crazy stuff in Nail the Mix and on videos that URM Academy posted. Like some things that a friend of mine sent me a video and he was like, you gotta check this out, this is crazy. And I can't remember what it was, but you used plugins and effects on a place where no one would ever think about doing it. Like you're a little bit known for doing weird and crazy stuff on places where no one thinks about doing it. How do you come up with that stuff? What is your train of thought there?
It's like if you have a wide knowledge base about what different effects do, you don't always have to apply those effects to what's typically like expected. So like if an effect gives me a gritty character or like like it gives me something that sounds a certain way, I can always apply that to all sorts of instruments and get that result, just because I know what the effect itself does, and I'm not limited to putting that on only guitars or only bass drum or whatever. I try to keep an open mind with that stuff to achieve my sound, I guess.
Yeah. So you said that you sit down basically every day to work on mixing because you want to be the best at that. Now, as a musician myself, I know there's this thing about over practicing and overworking, where you've been working on something for so long and you just lose the sensitivity of your hearing, or you just get like you have no inspiration anymore. Are there other things that you do on a daily basis, or that completely have nothing to do with music, to keep your mind fresh, to reset yourself a little bit? Or
Yeah, going to the gym for sure.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, but that's like the only thing. Like, one thing.
Literally one thing: going to the gym and making badass music. That's the dream right there.
Yeah, and when I'm at the gym though, I do tend to listen to my mixes and analyze them. So technically,
even when you're there,
it's not even taking a break. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, I can't really turn that stuff off, it seems like. Well, yeah.
I mean,
that's what I'm into.
It's not a bad thing as long as you're not overworking. Because you said in an interview that your mom told me you can't be working that much. You need to take a break sometimes. And that you replied, "But it's just what I do."
Yeah, I mean, taking a break is like that implies that what you do is something you have to take a break from. But I don't really feel that way with mixing, because it gives me so much. Like when I do it, I just love doing it. So I mean, as far as writing music, that for me requires breaks for sure. Like I just produced an album with Grayscale Season, which is a band I've mixed for years, but this time around they wanted me to come down and actually like structure their songs and write stuff with them. And that's a whole other like brain activity for me. Like that is really hard, so I have to take breaks for that for sure, and come back. But mixing, I don't really feel that way.
I read somewhere that now that you're talking about mixing other bands, apparently you don't record other bands, you just do mixing and mastering. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I can record for bands. Like if they send me MIDI bass and I have this really nice bass here that I really enjoy, and I have a certain way of tracking that I enjoy with mixing. So I sometimes track bass for bands or track guitars and bass for bands. So, but as far as having bands here and doing that, I'm not doing that right now, at least.
So I'm curious about this. Have you ever gotten recordings, especially in MIDI, where, let's say for example, drums. Have you ever gotten MIDI drums where you were like, I'll do it, but this is impossible to play live?
But I go through it all. Like I always get MIDI that's bad. That's like 99% of the time. But I spend the time on going through everything and correcting everything. So that's just a part of my process. I mean, if the MIDI is bad and it's impossible to play and sounds like shit, that's not acceptable, of course. But I'm the mixer, so I'm fixing it, because if I'm having my name on that, I don't care what the band thinks. I'm gonna change the MIDI so that it sounds like a drummer.
Yeah.
And if they say, I mean, I've never been in a situation where the band's like, nope. Like if I change the velocities or fills or whatever, and they just say no, that's never happened, because I can still maintain or retain their ideas and their songs. But the only thing I'm doing is kind of making it sound real. And if there's like a crash that's going over a super fast tom fill, I just delete the crash. Most of the time, the guys in the band don't even notice that. So it's not a problem, but it takes a lot of time to go through MIDI like that. But it's a huge process. I just did like a fast track with Nail the Mix on programming drums, which will be coming out. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but I don't think they're too precious about that. But so there I'm showing like how I would program from start, and I also show how I would correct MIDI that is like cranked all the way, like just sounding robotic. I have my methods for that for sure.
All right, nice. Definitely going to keep an eye out for that, because I think that's going to be very interesting for a lot of people. Because I do think that when programming drums, I myself catch myself doing that all the time. I don't play drums. I can't play drums in real life. So I make mistakes in programming drums all the time. And sometimes you don't realize it because you're just not physically sitting at a drum kit. I think it's the same. Right. It's the same with every other instrument. If you don't play it, it's nearly impossible to program it as if it was played by someone.
I agree. I understand that for sure. That's why I'm like guys that mix that are not drummers or don't have knowledge about drumming. That could be really hard in a world where you get a lot of drum MIDI, and that kind of results in a lot of fake sounding stuff for sure. I'm not saying my stuff sounds 100% real because I like the fake overproduced sound, but I also like the real sound, and I kind of just balance between those things, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now that we're talking about your sound, how did you, or when did you realize when you found your sound, especially for HLB, when you're mixing? Are you going for a specific sound, or do you just start and just see where it brings you?
Yeah, the sound. It's hard to describe. I mean, for me, like HLB stuff goes like hand in hand with mixing because I always mix while I write. So like when I have a session where I make my HLB riffs or songs, and that session is like fully mixed like already. So when I'm tracking into it and programming drums or whatever, it all sounds like a record already. So that way I can get like a full picture of how it will sound, and I can also alter the mix and kind of like decide on the sound I'm going for as far as effects or the way I'm mixing, or I don't know, high snare, low snare, whatever. I can decide those things and kind of write with that and listen, and that kind of but yeah, it just goes hand in hand. But as far as the sound goes on each record, that kind of just happens automatically because I don't know, it's weird. I just try something new. Like this, when I started writing now, like after the new record, there was like a certain effect I was using on the guitars that I just tried, and that just became the thing, like on every song, like I'm doing this thing now. It's hard to describe. I think I'm more open-minded when I know that this song is, or these new songs are not belonging to the old record. So now I can do something completely nuts and just try. So it kind of just happens automatically. I get an idea about something and I just do it, I guess. But yeah, it's hard to describe where it comes from, but it certainly happens quite fast. Like when I start on a new session, you know.
Yeah. When you're going into mixing and writing music, I'm guessing it's a bit different now than it would have been for you 5 years ago, just in terms of how fast everything is evolving, how many things we're getting that can help us in writing and production. Would you say that your approach to creating music has changed over the last 5 years in terms of production, writing, anything?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Just being more open-minded about just tuning. Like as far as like tuning, you don't just have to sit down with a guitar that has a certain tuning and then that song just has that tuning the rest of the song, or tempo or anything. Like you don't have to. There's no rules when you have all the tools that are available. You don't just have to have a rhythm tone that is like, we have one guitar on the left, one guitar on the right, and we have the bass, and it's like a rhythm tone and a bass tone, and we have the drums. Like there's no rules about that stuff. Like the relationship between like what is a lead and what is a rhythm guitar, do you have to separate those two? Do you have to have a lead at the same time as a guitar, or can you make like a lead that is good enough to be replacing the rhythm guitars and only like having a lead and maybe have a bass playing the root notes and stuff like that. Just like being open-minded about writing, and you don't have to be like doing all the standard stuff that everyone else is doing. And like also with instruments, I've been tracking bass as rhythm guitars, I guess. Like, so you have 3 bass tracks, like and yeah, just being open-minded, trying stuff and trying to achieve different sounds. But all that stuff will bite me in the ass when it's time to play live. But
yeah,
you can't think about that. You just have to make songs that sound good that people can listen to on Spotify. That's kind of what where people listen to it. So live, it's a different thing. I kind of look at live as something that is expected of a band, for sure. And I mean, I'm capable of doing it, but it's not going to sound the same for sure, because just the like the nature of editing and nature of effects and the way I write music, it's kind of hard to replicate live in some instances. But it would probably work good enough, I guess. But as technology gets better, it's probably going to get better as well for me. So let's see.
Yeah. I think that's very important. I think that's a very good look at things, about not staying inside a box where everyone else is in, because I feel like that's been done a lot lately, and you can tell by the bands that release music. For example, Brand of Sacrifice dropped their new record, which is absolutely insane. The production on that is crazy. All the effects, everything, it completely works, and the amount of attention that album is getting is insane. Whereas a gazillion other bands dropped an album at the same time, doing the same generic deathcore stuff, the same generic djent stuff. It's the same mix for all of those albums. Yeah. And they wonder why it doesn't get traction.
Yeah, and when you introduce crazy ideas to those bands, they reject it, because in their own mind, they just want to sound like the bands they're listening to. They don't want to create something new. They're not, like, a lot of those bands are not really artistic. They're not trying to create something new. They just want to play live in front of an audience that is headbanging, and that's totally fine as well. So it's kind of like, what are you trying to do? A lot of bands just want to tour a ton, and they look at the bands that tour a lot, and then they just try to make something that would also work in that same way. And like I said, that's fine, but don't be surprised if your release is not kind of getting the views that it should or whatever. I mean, we don't get, I mean, HLB or Viljarda don't get massive views by any measure compared to a lot of basic sounding deathcore bands. And that has to do with other stuff as well. Like, maybe our stuff is not the most easy to listen to or easy to get into, and maybe the music we're doing might be counter to like an audience together, like headbanging or maybe moving or whatever. Our music might be just like, people are not just, they don't know where like the one is or whatever. So that's kind of our own fault, I guess. But, or like that it's too dark or it's too whatever. But I mean, yeah, I think a Brand of Sacrifice has found that golden middle where they can do the super brutal stuff, but also have the kind of commercial side to the construction of the songs, and where like all people can nod their heads to everything, you know.
Yeah.
And it's really it's easier to get into for sure, and it certainly would be better live for like an audience to really get into it. So yeah, but everyone has their like goal in writing music and what they see in their heads they want the music to do. So I get that for sure.
I mean, if we take a look at the last album from HLB, if that is performed live, I'd be front row center. Like, to hear that stuff live, the atmosphere on that album is absolutely insane, which is one of the biggest reasons why I love it so much. And I think the reason that the accessibility for that is lower than, for example, Brand of Sacrifice or other deathcore bands, is just that people like to be a part of something. And a band that gets the crowd moving makes people feel that they're a part of something. But like
Sure.
HLB is, how shall I put this? It's an experience. It's not just a music act. I didn't want to say it, but okay. I mean, it's
I can see
true.
it for you. Yeah,
It's true.
Sure, for sure.
There's a lot of gatekeeping in the metal world, and it's sad. It's actually sad because there's a lot of talent that deserves way more recognition. Viljarda, HLB, both definitely fall in that category because it's just the amount of artistic work, time, like everything that goes into that album. It's so insane, and people don't realize it because they're just like this. They're just looking like that, and that's all they do. They just want to, like you said, nod their heads and just be in a crowd, and that's it. And I think that's...
Yeah, but that's basically what music is about, like getting people together and moving and blah blah blah. But as far as HLB, at least, that's not what I'm really trying to do, I guess. I'm not expressing those types of feelings. I'm not saying that like Brand of Sacrifice or anything or like Happy-Go-Lucky and whatever and are not expressing themselves. Of course there are, but yeah, I'm not. Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint what I'm really trying to do. Like, of course I want people to listen to HLB. But maybe I'm not I could probably make more appealing music for people in general, but like HLB is like the opposite of appealing, I guess. So yeah, but yeah, of course I want people to listen, but I also understand why you don't want to listen to HLB every day, you know? So, but that's just like that's just what comes out when I write music, and I can't really do a whole lot about that, I guess.
It's just it's how you write, and I think it's very important as a musician that what you write and what you release is in the first place something that you're happy about and that you're proud of, and in the second place comes the crowd pleasing aspect. It's something I learned along the years about myself. I used to be in like this deathcore band, that deathcore metalcore, you know, like every basic ass town has like 15 of those.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
It's very accessible. People come out to shows, people like it. Some of them learn the lyrics in one way or another and sing along. And it's all fun and games, but after like, I think I was in the band for 4 years, and then I realized like, okay, this is fun, but I'm not enjoying writing this kind of music anymore because it's so overdone, and I wanted to do something different. And then you slowly start to realize, as soon as you start doing something different that not everyone likes, it's way harder to get people to check you out.
It is. And everyone's like, oh, all the bands just sound the same. Just they're not looking in the right places, I think. There's like so many different bands that are so unique, but they don't get any views at all. But also those bands that tend to be more artistic in the metal world, like in the extreme metal world, those guys tend to not what's it called, advertise their music. Because they're not as interested in touring or listeners. They're more interested in expressing themselves. So the other parts that you have to do on social media these days, that just gets like, they don't care about it, so no one will hear it. But there are bands out there for sure that are doing their own thing, but they also, like I said, they're not really that interested in maybe getting a ton of listeners, you know. It's not always about that. It doesn't have to be always about the most listeners and the most tours or views or whatever, you know.
No, it's about, for me, it's about the music itself. I've come to find that touring and numbers and fans, it's all nice. And when people tell you, yo, your band's really sick, it's enjoyable. But
For sure.
the number one thing that I want to do as a musician is just write music that I'm proud of, release it, and if no one likes it, at least I like it.
Exactly. For sure. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
I think something that really helps with that, especially this is what I really like about the fact that more people are going open-minded though, is that we have, as I like to call it, we have the modern age. Everyone can start a bedroom project, start recording, mixing, mastering, releasing. If you educate yourself enough, which is very important, you can do a full-blown project out of literally the comfort of your own home. And I think that's really nice. But do you think that it has changed the music scene in a good or a bad way? Because there is a lot of stuff out there, but a lot of stuff is really good, but there's also the opposite side. So do you think it's a good or a bad thing?
It's not either of them. It's better and it's worse because more bad songwriters get to release their stuff, but more good songwriters also get to release their stuff. So it's like, I mean, of course everyone should be able to make music, and if people like it, people will listen. And yeah, but that shouldn't be the goal. Like I said, I don't think it should be the goal that I'm releasing this so that people can listen to my stuff. I mean, of course you want listeners, but this should be about expressing yourself in the truest sense and kind of being yourself and doing what you think is good, and that should be enough for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's both good and bad, I would say.
Do you have something to say to people that just start out, being it in music in general or mixing and mastering? I know a lot of people are very scared to get in production because the standards are so high these days. Is there any advice that you would give them when they're just starting out?
Yeah, like, it's quite easy to know if you're gonna be good at something, and if it's worth it to put a lot of time into something. Because if you're not like thinking about it every day, and if you're not like obsessed with it, I would maybe find something that you are obsessed with and do that. Because if you're not obsessed and you think it's like a chore to maybe watch 9 hours of Nail the Mix or whatever it might be to learn, if that feels like a chore, you should maybe look into something else. Because for me, it's like if I don't mix in a week or whatever, I get like withdrawal. Like I need to do that stuff. I need to do it all the time, and that's how I kind of know that is for me, and I'm willing to to put a lot of time into it, you know. So that would be, I mean, maybe it sounds bad, like if you're not like obsessed with it, just quit. That's not what I'm saying. You can still like mix for fun, but as far as like making a living, you have to be obsessed, I think, or just insanely talented. Like just get it right instantly. You don't have to spend any time on it. I don't know, but yeah. That would be it.
It's a hard word to get into. I've noticed it myself. I'm terrible at. I'm still in the like my snare sounds like shit stage, and I don't know why.
But snare is the snare is the hardest thing, and I still struggle with snares every fucking day. So it's okay. Snares are the hardest thing to get right, for sure.
Well, that comforts me a little. That's nice to know.
Yeah. You're not alone. The snare struggle is real.
I have one last question for you. Has nothing to do with production, nothing with writing music. Just one last thing I want to know. Are there any releases this year that you're looking forward to?
Ooh. I don't know. Fuck any band like I listen to that will release new stuff. I don't know. The new Viljarda release.
I was about to say, how about the new Viljarda release?
Yeah,
I think.
No, I mean, yeah, I guess that's like, or like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, That would have to be the answer because I don't have any other answer right now. So I'm an asshole.
I think a lot of people are agreeing with you about being excited for the new Vildhjarta release. I'm really excited about it as well. Really looking forward to it. With that being said, I want to thank you so much once again for doing this. Really appreciate it.
I enjoyed it, man.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear. I'm always a little bit nervous when I do these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So it's very nice to hear that you enjoyed it as well. I wish you a great Sunday evening. Thank you again, and stay healthy.
Will do. Same, man. Take care.
Thank you, man. Bye.
Bye.